She is meeting with the Premier, Li Xiang. She's also meeting with the former Vice Premier, Liu He, as well as the former PBOC Governor, Zhou Xiaochuan. So is this sort of something that we're expecting deliverables on, or is it a catch-up of old friends almost?
I think the primary objective of this trip is to reestablish lines of communication when it comes to the economic policy making in the two countries. We've had 3-4 years of COVID that have essentially cut off all of that communication. And on Friday, the secretary is really having a mix of past and present. Li Qiang, obviously the new premier, took over in March. She is also meeting Liu He, the former vice premier, someone she knows very well. Liu He has been in the policy-making apparatus here in Beijing for many years, going all the way back to the financial crisis. He was acted as a liaison with the United States and China. And she'll also be meeting with Zhou Xiaochuan, who was the central bank governor here in China when Secretary Yellen was leading the Fed. And so they have a close working relationship, have had so for many years. And so it is really an attempt to reestablish some of these lines of communications.
And those lines of communications are opening up also on the climate front. We are hearing that the U.S. climate envoy, John Kerry, will be headed there, too.
We do understand that John Kerry will be traveling to China sometime in the middle of this month. Obviously, any progress when it comes to global climate initiatives needs the United States and China, the biggest economies in the world and also the biggest greenhouse gas emitters, to sign on. That is a point of mutual consensus, one of the few that exists between Washington and Beijing. And so trying to get some progress on the climate front is, I would call, low-hanging fruit at this point.
We also saw some developments when it comes to the restrictions on two key metals critical to semiconductor manufacturing and EVs and telecommunications. MOFCOM saying yesterday that it's not a ban. These restrictions are also not targeted at any specific country. We're also hearing that the EU, where policymakers and officials are trying to work on narrowing the restrictions. Does that signal kind of a step down from what we thought was perhaps a blanket ban and a more aggressive move?
It could be. And so this is where it's hard to tell without knowing what the detail and the outcome of that discussion between Beijing and Brussels will be. Obviously, the Europeans would like to see very distinct, detailed outlines about what uses will be barred when it comes to exports of those metals. They also want to make sure that whatever rules are put in place are in line with WTO commitments that China has made. Whether or not that happens, we have to wait and see. It will probably be a process of negotiation, if anything else. And though the Ministry of Commerce has tried to say that this is not specifically targeting any one country, it is hard not to note that this has happened after a litany of limitations were put on China's access to semiconductors. Most recently, European limitations on what equipment ASML, the very, very important maker of chip production equipment, what sorts of machines they can ship to China. So it's very hard, given the timing, to keep those two things separate.